All right, this is our 1.7. We're talking about absolute value equations and inequalities. This is part 1, okay? Let's do this warm-up. This is what we did yesterday with our inequalities. This is already kind of set up for us. I can factor x squared minus 4 a little bit more. I have x times, what does x squared minus 4 factor out to be? X plus 2, x minus 2. So I actually have 3 points now to put on a number line. I have x equals 0, x equals negative 2, and x equals positive 2. Everybody see that? Christian, you with me? Okay, so I have negative 2, 0, 2. All 3 of these are boundaries. So how many areas do I have to check? I have to check 4. So let's pick a number to the left of negative 2. What would that number be?
Negative 3.
Okay. So I'm going to say negative 3. Whoops. Negative 3 times negative 3 squared minus 4. Is that less than 0? What's negative 3 squared? 9. What is 9 minus 4? So negative 3 times 5. Is negative 15 less than 0? Yes, so this works over here. Now let's pick something in between negative 2 and 0. So what number would you want to pick?
1.
Okay, so I have negative 1 times negative 1 squared minus 4 less than 0. Well, what's negative 1 squared?
1.
1. And 1 minus 4 is?
Negative 3.
So negative 1 times negative 3.
Positive 3.
Is 3 less than 0?
No, ma'am.
So this one doesn't work. So let's try something between 0 and positive 2.
1.
Okay, so 1 times 1 squared minus 4. What's 1 squared?
1.
And 1 minus 4 is?
Negative 3.
So 1 times negative 3 is
Negative
what?
3.
Negative 3. Is negative 3 less than 0?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, that works. Now let's pick another number, something bigger than 2.
3.
Positive 3. So 3 times 3 squared minus 4. Is that less than 0? What's 3 squared?
9.
9 minus 4 is?
5.
Is 15 less than 0?
No, ma'am.
No. So look at this, guys. You have 2 spaces that work and 2 that don't. What are the dots at all of my boundary lines?
Open.
They're open. So I have an open, 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 right? And where am I coloring?
From negative infinity. From negative to negative infinity.
Over here, right? And where else?
0 to 2.
Does everybody see that? Okay, so how would I write my answer?
Negative infinity.
To negative 2, parenthesis.
0 to 2.
How do I write it though? Union 0 to 2. Why am I writing parentheses? Because it's open. Good. Make sense? All right, so good. Now, we're going to talk about absolute value equations today. I'm going to go through a few examples. I want to talk to you about a couple things. We're going to take a few notes down, and then we're going to start our homework. Absolute value is always what kind of a number? Positive. So what we're going to do when we solve absolute value equations, the first thing you need to do is you need to make sure that you get the absolute value bars completely by itself. Similarly to how we did when we had square root, right? You want to get your absolute value bars by themselves. Are they by themselves? Yes. So now, pay attention. You guys are going to have to do this. Pay attention. You are going to set up 2 equations. Everybody with me? You're going to set up 2 equations. You are going to set up an equation that says 2x minus 5 equals 3. And you're also going to set up an equation that says 2x minus 5 equals negative 3. Since absolute value is always positive, if I asked you what the absolute value of negative 3 was, you would tell me it's what? 3. So you have to account for both scenarios. So we're going to solve each of these independently. I'm going to add 5 to both sides. Yes? Agreed? So 2x equals 8. Divide by 2. And x equals 4. Now on the right-hand side, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to add 5. And I'm going to get 2x equals 2. Divide both sides by 2. And I get x equals 1. Everybody okay with that? Now, on your test, you have to go back and check. You have to make sure that both of your solutions satisfy the equation. If it does not, then it's extraneous. So go back to your original equation. The absolute value of 2x minus 5 equals 3. Plug in 4. 2 times 4 minus 5. What's 2 times 4? 8. And 8 minus 5 is? So the absolute value of 3 equals 3. Is that true? Yes. Now I'm going to do the same thing over here. 2 times 1 minus 5 in absolute value. What is 2 times 1? 2. And 2 minus 5 is negative 3. Guys, what do you know about the value of absolute value of negative 3? It's positive. So does this one work as well? Yes. How many solutions did we get? 2. You have to account for both situations. If you only do half, then you're only getting half of the answer. Let's look at something like this. I told you, first thing you have to do is get what? The absolute value by itself. Same thing we did with square root. We didn't just automatically square both sides. You have to get the square root by itself. Same thing with absolute value. You have to get the absolute value by itself. So what am I going to do? Subtract 5. Good. So I have 3 times the absolute value of x minus 7 equals 9. Divide by 3. So I have the absolute value x minus 7 equals what? 3. Now that I have the absolute value by itself, I have to solve how many equations? 2. I'm going to set up x minus 7 equals positive 3. And x minus 7 equals what? Negative 3. So I'm going to add 7 to both sides. X equals what? Okay. I'm going to add 7 to both sides. And x equals what? I got to make sure that both of them work. I'm not going to ask you to formally check this on your test. So if you don't write this down, if you just look at it, guys, look, put a 10 here. What's 10 minus 7? What's the absolute value of 3? So this one works. Right? Put a 4 here. What's 4 minus 7? Negative 3. What's the absolute value of negative 3? So then what do you know about 4? It works. Have to take a second to go back and look. Christian, you're going to miss stuff. Now you can go if you want, but you're going to miss. Okay? Again, how do we solve absolute value? What do we have to do first? Get the absolute value completely alone. So, what do I do to both sides? Subtract 3. Good. So I have the absolute value of 2x plus 1 equals what? Okay. So what would we have done? Last 2 examples, what did we do? Set up how many equations? 2. Well, does it make sense, guys, to set up 2x plus 1 equals positive 0 and negative 0? No, because there is no such thing as positive negative. So when you get your absolute value equal to 0, you just have to solve it one time. What do I do? Subtract 1 from both sides. So 2x equals negative 1. Then what? Divide by 2. So x equals what? Negative 1/2. And then what do we have to do to make sure it's okay? Plug it in. Let's check it. Absolute value of 2 times negative 1/2 plus 1, and then plus 3 on the outside. What is 2 times negative 1/2? No. What's 2 times negative 1/2? Negative 1. What is negative 1 plus 1? 0. So absolute value of 0 is what? So does 3 equal 3? So this one works, yes? So when your absolute value is set to 0, how many solutions are you going to have? Just one. Okay, it's important that you guys are paying attention and following along to this. Let's look at this. What I want you guys, example. What do I have to do to solve this? Hold on, what do I have to do to solve it? I have to get that all by itself. So the first thing I'm going to do, Val, is what? Okay, subtract 9. So I get 3 times the absolute value of x minus 2 equals negative 3. Good. Okay, divide by 3. Divide by 3. X minus 2 equals negative 1. And I'm going to stop. Why is this no solution?
Because you can't get a negative from an absolute value.
Is there any number that I could plug in for x to where the absolute value of that number would be negative?
Nope.
So you stop right there and you say no solution. To be aware of, write this down, and then I'm going to let you guys start your homework. When you have absolute value equal to a positive number, write this down. 2 solutions. Whatever the equation is, your absolute value equation, when you have it isolated and it's set equal to a positive number, you're going to have 2 solutions. When your absolute value is set equal to 0, how many solutions do we have? Just one. You'll have 1 solution. And when your absolute value is set equal to a negative number, what's your solution? No solution. Where have you guys seen stuff like this before? When it's a positive number, you have 2 solutions. When it's 0, you have 1 solution. When it's negative, you have no solution.
Quadratic.
Okay, part of the quadratic, what was that? The discriminant. Remember, when the discriminant, if you had a positive answer, you had 2 real solutions. If you had 0, you had 1 real solution. And if you had a negative number, there was no real solutions. Same thing happens with absolute value. So if you guys have questions and you isolate your absolute value, not where at the beginning the number that it's set equal to is negative. That doesn't matter. But when you get your absolute value bars, whatever's in between them, when you get them set equal to a positive number, there's going to be 2 solutions. When you've moved everything around and you get that absolute value and it's set to 0, you're going to have how many solutions? How many solutions? 1. And if you isolate everything and you get the absolute value of x plus 17 equals negative 6, there's nothing more you can do. Any number that you plug in for x will never, ever, ever give you a positive answer because it's in what kind of notation? It's in what? What are those? What is that called? Absolute value. So this would be no solution. That's not a trick. So when you get that on your test, don't sit there and try and work it out and get some sort of wacky answer. It's no solution. Everybody understand? Okay.